The Epstein scandal is getting worse by the day. It really is. It's getting worse by the day.
And now they're invoking words like blood libel in all this. That's how serious they're taking it.
And he's accusing Netanyahu of blood libel.
A fellow Jew.
Yes, a blood libel.
Right.
Because Barak is running against Netanyahu if they have another election. So as of right now, Barak is Netanyahu's strongest opponent because Benny Gantz has pretty much faded away, and they've brought out Barak. Let's put up the photograph of Robert Maxwell. This is number 19 on our list of photos. Okay, so there's Robert Maxwell, publisher, extremely wealthy businessman, died in mysterious circumstances, fell off of his yacht.
Naked.
Yes. And drowned and
had a heart attack.
Yes. Which came first?
We don't know.
Standing on the yacht rail naked and you have a heart attack?
Fall over, or did you have a heart attack after you drowned?
After somebody knocked you off the rail, all right? So Robert Maxwell is believed to be a Israeli Mossad spy. I suggest you read
Gideon's Spies.
Gideon's Spies by the late Gordon Thomas. I interviewed him many times. And I guess, Doc, maybe we should go and bring back the interview I did with Gordon Thomas. We should just put it up on the website as audio. Right. It's done many, many years ago. Gordon Thomas passed away, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And but Gordon Thomas was convinced that Robert Maxwell was an Israeli Mossad spy.
He provided a great deal of evidence to it. I mean, it was a compelling read.
Maxwell owned a publishing house, several some prominent, well-known publications.
The British Printing Corporation, Sinclair Research, Macmillan Publishers, and the Mirror Group newspapers, which owns the Daily Mirror.
Macmillan Publishing at one time was the largest producer of textbooks for schools in the U.S. at one time.
That's right.
And so
he owned it.
That's right.
How about that? Get propaganda into the school textbooks.
Yes. So.
And Mr. Maxwell has his own long history with Israel, going back to the 1948 war. It's been considered to be a fact at this point that Maxwell helped smuggle in through an operation for air parts to the Israeli Air Force, allowing them to maintain air supremacy during the Arab-Israeli War in 1948. And as you noted, Gordon Thomas, he took this, I would say, much further than anyone else has taken the story on Maxwell, so much so that it wasn't simply that Mr. Maxwell, you believe Mr. Maxwell was more than simply an agent for the Mossad, was involved actively in potentially launching a coup in Russia to put the KGB chief in and topple the current prime minister at the time, which was Mikhail Gorbachev. And
he wasn't prime minister; he was the president.
The president, right? Yes, the president of the Soviet Union at the time. But the crazy thing with Mr. Maxwell, especially in regard to what Gordon Thomas has said, is Gordon Thomas doesn't believe it was an accidental death. Gordon Thomas believes that Mossad killed Mr. Maxwell because
their own agent,
because there are two things. He was planning to double cross the Mossad, potentially sell out information, set up his own shop, let's say, with the blackmailing information that he was generating. But two, that he was basically acting rogue in regard to this coup and other operations.
Well, there was another factor involved with that too. He was hundreds of millions of dollars in debt, and was actually
$400 million,
and was wanting to use his knowledge and information that he had in order for someone to pay off that debt. And so he was using that as an opportunity. I've got information, I need cash.
So a businessman who's deep in debt and facing bankruptcy is a prime candidate to be entrapped in an espionage network.
Yes.
Now, that could fit a lot of people.
Right.
When you owe $400 million.
And I've read
desperate.
It could be into the billions. Yes. When the actual bankruptcy took place, when Mr. Maxwell died, every part of his empire in publishing fell apart, and just only his brother was holding alone $400 million. It could be upwards of a couple billion, if not, I saw one figure, $400 billion. As one of the numbers presented of the debts he owed across 43 different banks.
Okay, so we're talking about Robert Maxwell, and there's a reason for it. As we've established, he was a Mossad spy for Israel. Number two, he had a daughter who is still alive. And
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ghislaine? Is pronounced Ghislaine?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ghislaine Maxwell. And so you need to know these two names, Robert Maxwell and Ghislaine Maxwell, because personally, I'm convinced that Ghislaine Maxwell is Jeffrey Epstein's handler for the Israeli Mossad. I don't believe she works for him. He works for her. I think Jeffrey Epstein was recruited and given a position to pretend to be a billionaire. Jeffrey Epstein has never been a billionaire. He's never made any business deals himself. He was allowed to pretend to be a billionaire. And his job was to entrap influential Americans and Brits and others around the world, entrap them in sex scandals with underage teenage girls so that they could be blackmailed. So his job was pretend to be a billionaire and entrap influential people. His salary was unlimited access to teenage girls. And he got to use all of the company benefits, right? The mansions, the jets.
Cars.
He could pretend to be a billionaire. Everybody thought he was a billionaire. But he knew he's not a billionaire. He's working for the company. Who's the company? Zionism, Israel, Mossad. What's the plan? Entrap influential Americans and others in Great Britain and Europe.